My girlfriend's single friends convinced her to break up with me as a test of commitment, saying if he really loves you, he'll fight for you. She dumped me at our anniversary dinner, expecting me to beg. Instead, I said okay and left. Now she's calling nonstop. It was just a test. You were supposed to prove you loved me. I never thought I'd be sharing this story, but here I am, 6 months later, finally able to laugh about what might be the most ridiculous breakup in dating history. My name is Jake, and until recently, I thought I was in a solid, loving relationship with a woman who turned out to be more influenced by her toxic friends than I ever imagined possible. Emma and I had been together for 2 years when this whole mess happened. We met through a mutual friend at a college reunion party, and the connection was immediate. She was studying to become a veterinarian, passionate about animal rescue, and had this infectious laugh that could light up any room. I'm a graphic designer who runs a small but successful freelance business, and we seem to complement each other perfectly. Our relationship progressed naturally and healthily, or so I thought. We moved in together after 18 months, split expenses fairly, supported each other's careers, and talked seriously about our future together. Emma was kind, intelligent, and ambitious, and I genuinely believed we were building something lasting and meaningful. The only consistent source of tension in our relationship was Emma's friend group, particularly her 3 closest girlfriends, Madison, Ashley, and Chloe. All 3 were single, all 3 were bitter about their dating experiences, and all 3 seemed to view every happy couple as a personal affront to their own romantic struggles. Madison, 28 and a marketing coordinator, had been through a series of dramatic relationships that always ended with her partner being labeled emotionally unavailable or commitment phobic. She had a habit of analyzing everyone else's relationships like she was conducting scientific research, constantly pointing out potential red flags and warning signs that existed mostly in her imagination. Ashley, 30 and working in real estate, had recently ended an engagement when she discovered her fiancé had been cheating throughout their relationship. While I sympathized with her situation, she'd responded to this betrayal by becoming convinced that all men were inherently untrustworthy and that any woman who believed otherwise was naive and headed for heartbreak. Chloe, 26 and a social media manager, cycled through dating apps like they were going out of style, constantly complaining about how modern men lack romance, commitment, and the willingness to fight for love. She was obsessed with grand romantic gestures and seemed to believe that relationships should operate like romantic comedies, complete with dramatic declarations and public displays of devotion. Individually, these women might have been manageable, but together they formed a toxic echo chamber that reinforced each other's worst instincts and most destructive beliefs about relationships. They met for wine nights twice a week, during which they dissected every aspect of their dating lives and, increasingly, Emma's relationship with me. At first, Emma would come home from these gatherings with minor concerns that seemed planted by her friends. Madison thinks it's weird that you don't text me throughout the workday, she'd say, or Ashley says most guys your age would have proposed by now. I'd address these concerns calmly, explaining my communication style or discussing our timeline for major relationship milestones, and Emma would seem satisfied. But as months passed, the influence of her friends became more pronounced and more problematic. Emma started questioning aspects of our relationship that had never been issues before. She'd analyze my behavior for hidden meanings, looking for signs that I wasn't as committed as I claimed to be. Chloe says that if a man really loves you, he should be jealous when other guys talk to you, Emma told me after one particularly intense wine night. She thinks it's suspicious that you're so confident in our relationship. I explained that trust and security were positive relationship qualities, not warning signs, but Emma seemed unconvinced. Her friends had successfully planted the idea that my emotional stability was somehow evidence of a lack of passion or commitment. The situation escalated when Emma started implementing tests suggested by her friends. She'd cancel dates at the last minute to see how I'd react, flirt with other men in front of me to gauge my jealousy response, or pick fights about minor issues to see if I'd chase after her when she stormed off. These tests were exhausting and frankly insulting, but I tried to be patient because I could see that Emma was struggling with insecurity that hadn't existed before her friends started poisoning her perspective. I suggested couples counseling, which Emma initially agreed to but then canceled after Madison convinced her that wanting therapy meant our relationship was fundamentally flawed. The breaking point came on our 2-year anniversary. I'd planned a special evening at the restaurant where we'd had our first official date, followed by a weekend getaway to a bed and breakfast in wine country that Emma had mentioned wanting to visit. I'd made reservations months in advance, arranged time off work, and was genuinely excited to celebrate this milestone in our relationship. Emma seemed nervous throughout the day, which I attributed to excitement about our anniversary celebration. She'd been secretive about her own plans for the evening, hinting that she had something special to tell me. I assumed she was planning to give me a meaningful gift or perhaps wanted to have a serious conversation about our future together. We arrived at the restaurant in good spirits, reminiscing about our early dates and discussing how much our relationship had grown over 2 years. Emma seemed distracted during dinner, checking her phone frequently and appearing to be texting someone, but I didn't want to make an issue of it during our celebration. As we finished our main course and I was about to suggest ordering dessert, Emma suddenly became serious and reached across the table to take my hands. "Jake," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I need to tell you something important." I smiled, expecting a romantic declaration or announcement about our future. "What is it?" "I think we should break up." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. What? I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I don't think this relationship is working anymore, she continued, her voice gaining confidence as if she was reciting a prepared speech. We've grown apart, and I need to focus on myself right now. I think it's best if we end things before we get in any deeper. I sat there, holding her hands in the middle of this restaurant where we'd shared so many happy memories, trying to process what was happening. Emma, where is this coming from? We were just talking about how happy we are together. Sometimes happiness isn't enough, she said, pulling her hands away. Sometimes you need passion, intensity, the feeling that someone would do anything for you. I just don't feel that with us anymore. The language she was using sounded like phrases I'd heard her friends say during their wine night discussions. This didn't sound like Emma speaking from her own heart, it sounded like Emma repeating talking points that had been drilled into her head. Is this about something specific? I asked, genuinely confused. Have I done something wrong? Said something that hurt you? If there's a problem, we can work through it together. Emma shook her head, and I could see tears forming in her eyes. It's not about anything you've done wrong. It's about what you haven't done. You've never fought for me, Jake. You've never shown me that you'd go to extraordinary lengths to keep me. You're just so comfortable with everything. And there it was, the influence of her friends, particularly Chloe's obsession with men who fight for love. Emma was breaking up with me not because our relationship was flawed, but because it was healthy and stable. I looked at this woman I'd spent 2 years loving, supporting, and building a life with, and I realized that she'd allowed her toxic friends to convince her that drama and instability were signs of true love. Emma, I said quietly, what exactly would fighting for you look like? What do you want me to do? She seemed surprised by the question, as if she'd expected me to immediately launch into passionate pleas for her to reconsider. I don't know. Something. Anything that shows you care enough to not just accept this. In that moment, I had a choice. I could play the role her friends had convinced her I should play, beg, plead, make a scene in the restaurant, chase after her dramatically. I could feed into the toxic dynamic they'd created and reinforce the idea that love should be a constant battle to prove worthiness. Or I could respect both Emma's stated decision and my own dignity. Okay, I said simply, signaling the waiter for our check. Emma's face showed confusion and something that looked like panic. Okay? That's it? You've told me you want to break up, I replied calmly. I'm not going to try to talk you out of a decision you've clearly thought about. If this is what you want, then I respect that. I paid the check, including a generous tip for our server who'd had to witness this awkward scene, and stood up from the table. Emma remained seated, staring